All right, guys, so I'm still going to post a video today, so make sure you guys check out the nightly watch list. We're going to go over the trades we made. We do that every single day, and we are live Monday through Friday, 30 minutes before open. But I want to talk about what's going on right now and kind of give a quick little history lesson because I think it's very important here for the near future, and a lot of people were confused on it, and I want you guys to understand it's going to take time, but it's why this move in oil today is so important and the implications it have. And we're going to go back all through the 70s up to the early 80s, talk about a little bit of OPEC, but I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible. So right off the bat, the important thing about what happened, there was a drone strike on the Saudi Arabia oil field, and it's pretty much the main point is led to a halt of 5% of the world's oil production supply. So that is the first important thing. The next important thing that has occurred is that the President of the United States has allowed the release of some reserves to counteract this drop in supply. Now, both of these things have not occurred in a long time, and this has reminded me of a big thing. And really, what I can expect from this, I think big volatility in oil is going to come up, and overall, this has the potential to drive oil up in the long term, and that is good for it's honestly is good to a certain point. But if we do start breaking back above like levels like $80-$85 per barrel, that's when it starts to have a negative effect on the economy, and then that could bring up other concerns that I'm sure is going to be addressed by the Federal Reserve as well too. So you guys could see here's 1973, and then 1979, you had two big oil run-ups, and even after the first one, it kept oil up. So I want you guys to understand this to get an idea. The 1973 crisis is a little bit different than what we're experiencing, and I think we're more related to the 1979 crisis. But simply in 1973, it was OPEC and Iran, and they decided to put embargoes on any of the countries that supported Israel. And this was Canada, Japan, Netherlands, US, and all those. And pretty much by the end of the embargo, after a year later, it had made oil rise to 400%. It went up 400%, and it caused the oil crisis or shock because, and again, it even says here is long-term effects on global politics and supplies, and this was mainly because of what it did to supply, and that's the issue we're seeing here today. But this isn't as much of what we're seeing today. What we are seeing is the 1979 oil crisis. This is where it gets interesting because right off the bat, a lot of people will try to counter this argument and say that today, the U.S., ever since shale, we produce a lot more. I will include this article here. I will read some of this. This is from Investopedia. You can see here, OPEC today controls roughly 72, or as of 2018, 72% of the world's total crude reserves and produced 42% of the world's total crude output, but mainly is how many barrels that are in production. So in the United States, we do about 10 million barrels a day. We are losing 5 million barrels per day from Saudi Arabia after this whole attack issue. So again, you're seeing the claim for the top spot is between the US and Saudi Arabia. We are very big. So a lot of people say, well, we produce so much, it's going to be different than 1973 or 1979 because the US had much more reliance on these countries. And that's the thing. Ever since 1973, the U.S. made sure we would never be put in that situation again. Take a look here. After 1973, we were even producing 9 million. It came up here, but as you see, 1985 or even 1979, 1980, and this is when the production dropped from Saudi Arabia and Iran, the U.S. was producing around just under 9 million barrels a day, and you could see, comparing that to 2015, it is the exact same amount. So believe it or not, the numbers are actually very similar to 1979. So now what happened here, this occurred during the second oil shock occurred during the wake of the Iranian Revolution, and what happened is that global oil supply decreased by only 4%. We lost 5% today. The key was widespread panic. So this could even explain why Trump decided to release some of the reserves so quickly, and they're controlling the narrative right away. But this drove the prices higher. It really started with what was going on in the Middle East that caused Iran to drop the production and so on. But again, the resulting panic. And then it says the price of crude oil more than doubled to $39 per barrel over the next 12 months. And long lines once appeared at gas stations, so on and so forth. And then the key with this, it says in 1980, following the outbreak of the Iran-Iraq war, oil production nearly stopped. Iraq's oil production was severely cut, and then economic recessions were triggered in the United States and other countries. Oil prices did not subside to pre-crisis levels in the mid-'80s. After 1980, oil prices began a 20-year decline, and this is something, too, that some people were arguing we've seen since 2008 when we were at $160 or $150 a barrel. It's been about 10 years, and we've been seeing almost a 10-year decline, even though it had the big drop, held up 2011 till 2014. And again, this brings up Russia, China, and everything else that has pretty much started those first drops we've seen in the market. You should check out Little Buffett's freestyle. He explains it very, very good in there. And then 1979, pretty much, it had negative effects. It caused recessions and stuff. And this is where I would want to even draw the point that as oil price goes up, it is good. This could be helping inflation and other things that the Fed is looking for. But if it goes up too much, that's when it could start hurting emerging market growth, even consumer growth, and anything like that. So there's both, it's a good and bad part. But really what I'm expecting here, and this is the main key, it took oil over 12 months to double. So even after all that stuff occurred in April 79, you could see it took, April, November, January. It took time for oil to keep going and going and going. And as you see here, the prices are adjusting for inflation and everything else. See, inflation adjusted. If we bring it back here, you guys see the $39 a barrel. So hopefully you're getting a better idea of what's going on there. But regardless, I would watch this. There is going to be issues with other countries and who does what. There is going to be politics of whether we blame Iran or Iraq, or I don't know why I said Iraq, but Iran in this, and who's going to do what and whatever it may be. But the key is what this is going to do for oil prices. But as I'm bringing up 1979, 1973, the factors we're seeing with oil production dropping this much, and then even seeing the responses by the president, this isn't something that just happens. This isn't something you have not seen. Essentially, I wasn't even alive last time this occurred. So again, things will play out different because there is different factors, but the fact that something like this happens, I would encourage you to keep your eyes out. I'm going to be watching oil, and I think it's going to create a bunch of plays, so I'm going to leave it right there. Hopefully that was quick and easy for you guys. I love you. Make sure you subscribe, drop your thumbs up on the video, and I'll see you on the watch list tonight.